Hey outlaws, and welcome back to what's pretty much an ongoing series of historical swords brought to you by the first and technically the only giant swordsman. Alright, so we have just found more information about a 800 to 900 year old sword, a Crusader sword that was found in the Mediterranean Sea. Now experts are finally believing and unraveling how it actually got there. So you can see the picture of it right here in the ocean, and it's completely encrusted from top to bottom with like crustaceans, shells, looks like a little bit of mud mixed in there. But also you can see what looks like rock or old canvas. It was discovered with jugs. It was discovered with stone anchors. Yes, stone anchors. Specifically because it has been identified as a European medieval sword. So although Europeans obviously knew how to sail for quite some time, iron was a precious thing back then. So I'm sure anchors were created with iron, but they also were made with stone in order to save that iron, especially when you're trying to mass a huge army and get them to go sail down to another, like basically another continent very, very far away. So, you know, if you want to save some iron, well, anchors take a lot of iron, a lot of steel, make them out of stone. It is believed that it was found far off enough the coast of Israel. And just in case you guys don't know where Israel is, here it is. Boom, right there. And more specifically, and I'll put this image up later to make it bigger. Here's Mediterranean Sea. And then right at the bottom right, you have Israel, where right off the coast, that sword was found. Let's go back to this. It was discovered by divers in 2021, but obviously, you know, they had to pull it out. They had to make sure it was safeguarded because it's been underwater, and since it was encrusted, it was able to maintain its shape and overall integrity. And then they had to do X-ray scans on it. So it is believed that in the midst of a raging naval battle, more than 3 foot long sword, actually about 4 feet, was flung overboard. Now, this one isn't as accurate, so we're going to switch over to USA Today, where Naomi did a much better job. So she describes it as a 900-year-old sword, Crusader sword found off the coast of Israel. It's believed to be a relic from the Crusades. The founder of the person who discovered it was Shlomi Katzin on the floor of the Mediterranean Sea, along with other artifacts, as I mentioned previously, including stone anchors, pottery fragments. But obviously, the sword was the most useful and rare item amongst it. Like, I don't know why I'd call it priceless, but it's a very rare find indeed. It weighs approximately 4 pounds, about 4 feet long, and it's believed to date back to the Third Crusade, which launched when 3 European monarchs tried to retake Jerusalem after the fall of the Muslims. As we know, really only the First Crusade was the most successful one. The Second, the Third, and so on and so forth, not as much, especially the Children's Crusade, which unfortunately ended with most children being thrown into captivity and slavery and being sold off in the Muslim slave trade market. Anyways, so during the Third Crusade, King Philip Augustus of France, King Richard I, also known as King Richard Lionheart, and Holy Roman Emperor Frederick Barbarossa, which I believe he met his end drowning when he tried to cross a river, set out to retake Jerusalem. Salah ad-Din, the ruler of an area covering modern Egypt, Syria, and Iraq, had conquered in 1187. The person who discovered it was awarded a certificate of appreciation for good citizenship and praised by the general director of the IAA, which is the Israel Antiquities Authority's Marine Archaeology Unit. That's a very, very long one. So he got some stuff. And then they praised him quite a bit for it. And then you get to see more pictures here of the sword up close after it was brought out, and they took some snapshots of it. Here's the director, you know, holding the sword, because why would we get the picture of the guy who found the sword? Nope, we gotta look at the director instead. There it is underwater, which is a pretty darn good photo. I mean, that's pretty insane when you think about it, that this sword was discovered just hanging out there. So lucky, very, very lucky that crustaceans covered it. And then obviously it has a close up, so you can see like it's just completely surrounded. It's actually good. It's the one thing I've discovered since we started this series is that a lot of these swords, it's really based upon how it was buried, the soil, and whether or not like some natural source came encrusted around the blade in order to keep its integrity and keep it intact. Otherwise, there's just the ground's probably literally littered with just completely just destroyed swords, disintegrated swords, broken down that just become one with the earth again, and providing a high volume of iron in the immediate vicinity. Okay, there's a little close-up of the handle and crossguard. Another picture right there. And there's it leaning against a rock. They had a field day with it. So there we go. We get to find out a little bit more. And then obviously, you know, it's Swords back then, hard to make, take a lot of iron, a lot of skill. And of course, they were usually only used by professional soldiers, foot soldiers, and the nobility as a sign of status. But a very effective weapon if you knew how to use it, as this one touches in here a little bit. The X-ray imaging, which allowed the ancient sword to be studied without removing the sand and shell coating, suggests the medieval weapon probably fell in the water during naval battle. Now, it was probably fell into the water with its owner because it didn't have a scabbard with it. It was just a sword by itself. The guy's probably down there somewhere, but are we really going to find the body? No. Are we going to find any of the weapons or armor? Possibly. But if it was mail and a helmet, it's probably been thrown all over the place, grounded down, and then fell apart. Or it would just look like a rock, and nobody's going to know the difference. The only reason why this sword got discovered is because it looks like a freaking sword. And then this article goes on to say that considering the bloody battles took place between the country and Crusaders and Muslims, known for several historical sources, we could expect to find more such swords. In practice, we mostly find fragments, very few whole swords. So far, 7 swords from this period have been found in the country, most of them discovered in the sea. Lots of fighting. Swords were not usually discarded, but over the years, once they were no longer in use, the metal was recycled for other uses, which makes perfect sense because that's a lot of good ones. And then he goes back to state, of course, what I already mentioned, is that only nobility and professional soldiers fought with swords because they're expensive to make and require training and practice to use. And then he goes on to say further that swords are usually found within a scabbard. In this case, only the sword was found. It's definitely fell in the sea, possibly with its owner. But anyways, that's pretty cool. I'm glad we discovered it. And here's a better picture of how really big the sword is. It's not a small thing. It's quite massive. So obviously whoever wielded it was quite an impressive man. All right, Outlaws. Thanks for coming. I'll see you all next time.